anticipated this coming for, a handful of weeks now, and now it's finally happened. The Titans have acquired Julio Jones from the Atlanta Falcons, along with a 2023 sixth round pick. In exchange, the Falcons receive a 2022 second round pick and a 2023 fourth round pick. So Julio Jones is now a Tennessee Titan. He joins a receiver core with A.J. Brown and an offense that also sports Derrick Henry. The Titans, they look really good now coming into the season. But Ryan, I got to ask for your thoughts on this trade. Do you like it or not?
Yeah, so the question, I look at it in different ways because the move itself I don't think is necessarily bad, but I see this as an absolutely non-zero plus for the Titans. I really do. I don't think this moves any needle. I don't think this makes them any better. I don't think this helps them win any more than they did last year. I really don't. And that's because when you look at this team, the offense is not what was holding them back. So obviously, the one thing I'll say is you lose 192 targets in the offseason with Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, and Johnny Smith. So it's nice to get Julio to replace that. And I think in the regular season, it'll be good because you don't have to keep as much stress on Derrick Henry. If you're Titans, you probably don't want him rushing for 2,000 yards again because that means you just feed him the ball so much and you got to preserve him a little. But the reason that the Titans can't get over that hump and can't make that next step is because the defense, and they are not able to get after the quarterback at all. They were tied with the Lions last year for the lowest pass rush rate in the NFL, excuse me. And in the secondary, it's even worse. They allowed the second most passing touchdowns to those same Lions. And what they did to address those issues, they signed Bud Dupree, who on its own isn't really proven. We know he can rack up sacks, but that's when he has the help of the TJ Watt getting double teams, when he has a Cam Hayward and a Stephon Tuitt clogging the inside. And so the reason I bring this up and the reason I'm going to get into their secondary now is because those are the issues the Titans have to go after. Those are what they should spending their second rounders on if they're willing to deal them. Not a guy in Julio Jones who, yes, it makes their offense super fun. I know I've seen all those pictures around the big three with Derrick Henry, Julio, A.J. Brown, the who's stopping this offense. And I feel like every time we get those, it's always themselves. And I think the defense is going to be what's holding them back. In the secondary, it's even worse because your number one corner is a 32-year-old Janoris Jenkins, who was the number one option, who's now the number one. It's on his third team in 3 years, and you have a rookie as the number two. So the Titans secondary is not good. The pass rush is very suspect. It was the worst in football last year. And with those issues, I don't see how a move for a 32-year-old receiver who just missed 7 games last year is going to move any needle. Like, is it a nice piece? Yes. Is it going to hurt them? Not at all. But this is not going to help them win games. Second round picks are valuable. I wouldn't, if I was going to trade a second round pick for the Titans, I would use it on the defense because that's what needs the most help. That's how they are going to get to the next level and be legit contenders.
Well, I mean, yeah, the defense it's not exactly perfect, and sure, there are some shortcomings on it, but I personally see this as a complete win for the Titans. I mean, I think this was a really good move. Now, I mean, they obviously have the most dangerous offense in the league. AJ Brown and Julio Jones just immediately became the best wide receiver duo in the league, and I don't think it's really close. But I mean, the big thing here is that Julio Jones, we all know his talents. He is a tremendous player and has been a consistently great receiver for so long, and they really didn't give up anything for him. I mean, they take on his contract, which is a hefty one, but if you're telling me you're giving up a second round pick for a top receiver in the league, I mean, I have to view that as a win. You're just adding him to a roster without really sacrificing anything. So I really think that this move is great for the Titans, and I see them as the AFC South favorites. Now, it really just becomes, can they compete with, the Buffalo Bills or especially the Kansas City Chiefs? But I really think this was a good move for the Titans. They really are stacked now on offense. They're loaded. As you mentioned, they can take the workload off of Derrick Henry, and the defense may be a question mark, but it might not matter if you can just outscore everybody every week.
Well, you talked about only giving up a second rounder. And I think that's really telling because everybody knew Julio was on the move, right? It's not like
Mm-hmm.
this came out of nowhere. This was expected. This has been drawn out for the last 2 weeks. Remember, he went on undisputed on that phone call, Shannon Sharp. He openly said, yeah, I'm out of there. So, like, we knew he wanted out. And the fact that the bidding war and all it took was a second I think it is telling for what teams kind of view. Obviously, Julio's been fantastic, 13K yards in his career. He's definitely a Falcons legend. You can't dispute that. But he is 32 coming off a hamstring injury. And if you just look at it objectively, 32-year-old receivers coming off an injury, I mean, they don't always come back. I know we've
Sure.
seen in recent years the price for these star receivers has been a one, but that's for younger guys. Stephon Diggs was 26 into that trade. Odell was still on his rookie contract, or he just signed his second deal. So those were younger guys getting dealt. Julio, the 32, you can't ignore that. And production does fall off at some point. I don't think it's going to necessarily fall all the way off, but I don't think this moves a needle when the defense is so bad, right? It's not like this defense is average. Like the Chiefs, I'd say, have an average defense and they can withstand that with kind of, their offensive firepower and Mahomes and all that. But the Titans defense is a legit weakness. And I don't know how it's going to just get better like this. The Bud Dupree signing, as I said, I don't think that solves all their issues. The cornerback room, you have to look at that as a huge weakness. And in this league, you can't just win on offense. You need to have a good defense because you say they can score every time. Do you really believe that? I know Ryan Tannehill puts up the stats, but do you really believe he can keep up with Mahomes in a playoff game? We've seen him fail in the past, and that reason they lost that game was because they could not stop Mahomes. And I think that is what we'll see with the Titans. I think the Colts, you talked about the AFC South, have a more complete team. As long as Carson Wentz can get back to somewhat of his recent form, I could see them being, I think they still are the favorites in that division barely because they have, the O-line, the D-line, they have the defense to compete. And I think you need the well-roundedness of your football team because shootouts aren't going to cut it all the ways. Your offense is going to have off games. You're going to need your defense to get stops. And I don't trust the Titans to do that, which is why I can't look at this move as making the Titans Super Bowl contenders. That's, I guess, my number one takeaway because, Julio is still awesome and stuff like that. I don't want to call him a bad player or anything. I just don't think this move pushes the needle in a direction where I see the Titans as a legit Super Bowl champion. And when you're trading for a 32-year-old Hall of Fame receiver, I feel like that's what should be the goal. And I don't think you can look at it as being that in Tennessee.
Well, the Titans' goal is clearly to win. They want to win a Super Bowl. The question is, can they get past the Chiefs? Can they get past Buffalo? And can this put them over the top? You mentioned the shortcomings on defense. I think the Bud Dupree Simon is great, but yes, there are holes in the secondary. I mean, Janoris Jenkins is your top option. That's especially at this point in his career. It's not great, but I will say that, if you give Ryan Tannehill another weapon, and especially with Julio Jones, he usually gets doubled a lot. And, if you just take the pressure off of A.J. Brown, this could be one of the best offenses in recent memory. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm really excited to see how this works out for the Titans and what they do in the 2021 season and see how they go from there.